Business is about connections. It's about working with other people. It's about engaging staff. It's about signing customers and clients. And today we're going to be talking about connections with confidence. And to help us out, I have with me Suzi Dafnis, who I have known at least for a decade, maybe 15 years. She's the CEO and founder of HerBusiness, which is one of Australia's largest membership networks for women business owners. She's passionate about helping people make connections with each other, with mentors, with great ideas. And she has a dog called Kona, which I believe is a Hawaiian island. Hey, Suzi, I've known you for years and years, but I didn't know you had a dog called Kona, and I've got no idea why your dog is named after a Hawaiian island. Can we start there?
Yes, we can. And really, she's a COVID dog. So we weren't planning on getting a dog, but we weren't going anywhere and we were home a lot. So it was a good time to get a dog, but it was time. She's actually named after a city on the Big Island of Hawaii. And it's the very same city where I'm going to really age myself, in 1992, I attended a 16-day business school, and I was a young woman then, and I knew relatively nothing about business, but I was sponsored to go to this conference, and I was way above my head. Here were all these entrepreneurs, all these business people, and here was me who knew nothing about business. But when I started to see the possibilities for creating my own business, I left and then decided that, one, I was going to create what was my very first business, and that I was never going to work for anyone else again. And so it has a very special place in my heart, the place of Kona. Firstly, it's stunning. It's where you'll see manta ray swimming out. There's volcanoes erupting. It's just stunning. And today we take women there every single year for a retreat. And these are women who are also entrepreneurs and looking to create a bigger vision for their business. So that's how Kona got her name. Wow. And she's a bit of a volcano herself.
I'm glad I asked. I came up with my first business idea at a retreat in a little country town called Marysville. Not quite as dramatic as a place with volcanoes and manta rays, but there you go. Now, I'm sure at that time you made a lot of connections, and you probably made a lot of connections at that time, but perhaps not with confidence. And when we're talking about connections, we're talking about connecting with people online. We're talking about connecting with people virtually. We're talking about connecting with people in the real world. It's super important. And most of us, when we start out, and even quite established business operators, do not do this that well. So I'm really glad that we're talking about this today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it straight over to Suzi, and I'm going to sit back and relax and maybe come in every now and then and learn some stuff.
Put your feet up. Alrighty. So this is really important, because as business owners, really the quality of our connections can just open the doors for us. It's how we get referrals. It's how we build our networks. But how do we do this, like James said, without feeling like we're pushing ourselves onto others, or we're holding back and we're not actually making the connection, or we're feeling sleazy, or we find it really difficult or uncomfortable? And so I want to take you through some very real ways that you can do this. And so firstly, I just want to know if this sounds like you at all. Do you have a great product or service, but you remain the best kept secret? This is such a crime. And so many of us as business owners, we have amazing products and services, but no one knows who we are because we're not connected. Or you have people say that they love you and they love what you're doing, but they still don't seem to hand over the cash, or you're not getting enough leads and sales, or you're giving lots of value, but you don't actually know how to ask for the sale. Or maybe you're struggling to communicate the value of your products and services and you're really underselling yourself. Or maybe this is you. You put posts on social networks just hoping someone's going to reply, or you try to think of someone you can invite to pick their brains, even if you don't know them well. Or maybe it feels like you're shouting into a vacuum and don't have anyone to call on when you want to spread the word about your new product or your service. Hopefully there's some people out there now nodding. Here's a couple more scenarios. Maybe you're left paying for expensive ads, trying to find ways to get attention from your target market. But what you're getting are tire kickers, right? They're the only people that are being referred to you, and you don't have a regular and generous network to give you all the referrals that you need. Or maybe you belong to a few networks, a few groups, but you really feel invisible and you are really unknown by anyone who really matters, the influencers, the mentors, the colleagues that could really help you. So some of you are hearing networking, you're going, I don't like networking. Hey, either do I. but listen up, because we're not talking about networking, we're talking about connecting today. So there's an old way of networking that is very disconnected. This is that awkward, distasteful, ineffective way of old networking. And we said adios to that type of networking at HerBusiness many, many years ago. This is the kind of way where people feel uncomfortable. These are actually some real words that members shared with us. Nervous, lost, judgmental, mixed feelings. Now, a couple of people say, I love it, but likely they figured out how to make connections rather than show up at networking events hoping something will happen. So that's the old way, really disconnected. The HerBusiness way is having the right people around you who are going to open doors for you that are closed to everyone else. That's what happens. That's how James and I get to be here together. These are the people that can make knowledge and connections and resources and opportunities available right when you need them. This is what we call having a connection network. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Because see, I'm an introvert. You may not know that because here I am on a summit here with James, and here you see me with some amazing people. You may or may not recognize some of these faces, but these are world-class speakers, best-selling authors, inspiring entrepreneurs. Some of them, in fact, I can see at least one person who's also part of this summit who's right here on this page. Now, the reason I've been able to make these amazing connections and be able to at any time get a speaker on a podcast, get an invitation to speak, have someone come into my membership and support our members, get access to resources, support when I need it, and mentoring, is by doing the exact things that I'm going to show you how to do here today, because it really is a new era. We're no longer pressing the flesh to get new clients or make connections. We are actually building relationships. And this has become more and more important, especially as opportunities sometimes to do this face-to-face or in our old environments have broken down. So you're going to love what I've got here today, because you can do it from anywhere. You can do it in your pajamas. You can do it from home. But before we dig in, I want to explain this idea of a connection network, because here's what it's not. It's not about networking, and it's not about networking events. Dong dong. So what is it about? It's about creating people around you, who can open doors for you that are closed for everyone else, and who are there for you. So you're never shouting into a vacuum. You're not wondering where that next referral is going to come from. You have people who can get past that gatekeeper and find that right person that you need in that organization that you want to do business with. And it starts with this. This is the HerBusiness connection scale. And so as you can see, it goes from left to right. And what we want to do is we want to see, where are you on this connection scale? Are you on the far left? We call that isolation. This is the business owner who is the lone ranger. They're not reaching out for help. They're not asking for support. They're trying to figure it out. They're on their own, often isolated physically as well as every other way. And this is the person who doesn't have anyone to help spread the word about their new promotion, doesn't have any strategic alliances, doesn't get those opportunities. Right? So we don't want to be there. On the other side, we have what we call transaction. Now, this is actually another way to be disconnected. This is the person who you meet at an event and they're shoving their card in your face. They're shoving as many cards in as many faces as they can. And they're really good at getting the deal. They're not afraid to ask for the sale. This is the person, we don't like these people very much. This is the person who DMs you 5 minutes after they've connected with you on LinkedIn and says, buy my stuff, do my thing. Can we have a coffee chat? No, we cannot. So we don't want to be that person either, right? Although these people know how to sell, so they've definitely got something going for them. Where we want to be is in the middle. This is the sweet spot. This is what we call connection, and this is where the magic happens. Now you can see this circle that says connection, and there's 3 little things outside it. I'm going to describe those in a moment. The first one is showing up. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to become more connected without feeling like you're pushing yourself onto someone. And this is something you can do even if you're shy and introverted, even if you're starting out in business, and even if you've been in business for 20 years. So showing up is what we call a connection move. Now, when you're showing up, this is about being on the field, in the game, not on the sidelines. So if you think of any sport or any time you've engaged in any sort of activity, it all happens when you're on the field. Not much is happening on the sidelines. And this is where you get the results. So this applies to your connection network. Showing up means when you join this summit, you show up to the actual sessions. If there's places where people are connecting, you show up and you show your face. This is how you become known, liked, and trusted. This is where you join your local chamber of commerce or you do a course and then you ghost. You're not showing up. You really want to be showing up where those opportunities arise. And I'm going to give you some examples. But first, I want to show you this article from Forbes. You can't see the details, so I'll give you the scoop. This was a story about loneliness in entrepreneurs and how it is one of the biggest factors why businesses fail. And the reason is that we're there on our own, we're being the Lone Ranger, we're disconnected, and our businesses fall apart. Now, this professor identified some key things that can make the difference. One is growing and nurturing an online community of like-minded individuals, like we're doing right here. The other is to actually network and to make connections. Another one is celebrating achievements, and I'm going to talk more about that later. And the other is finding an accountability partner. And why I loved these, James, is that they speak exactly to the core of what we believe about making connections. This is Amy Lee from Heart Content. She's based in Victoria. She's one of our members, and she has a small agency where she helps people write the stories about their brand. So she helps with messaging. So she joined the HerBusiness network. She updated her profile in the directory. She showed up to the monthly events. She raised her hand to be a featured member. She said yes to being a guest on a podcast. And so she showed up in taking advantage of all the opportunities that were there to her, which so often we just let slide. And here's what happened. More than 50% of her clients come from inside the network. She has a wait list of clients ready to do business with her. She's been on maternity leave twice. So being absent from business, comes back, full appointment book. This is another member showing up at our monthly event. What happens? She meets 2 people. She meets 7 people. 2 of them turn into clients right away. 5 are catching up because she showed up. She took advantage of the opportunity that was right there in front of her. So have a think about where you could be showing up right now. It might be in a Facebook group. It could be in a forum. It could be in a membership you're a part of. It could be in this summit. Showing up in the networks you belong to. So for us, it's really important for members to show up in our Facebook group. That's where the conversations are happening. And you can see there's conversations going back and forth. Showing up and using resources. So one of the things that we give our members is a page on our website in our directory. Now, this is like a free page on our website. We've got an established site. We get lots of Google traffic. Now, why would you want to show up there? Because we index these to Google, which means that you're going to show up, and you're going to show up usually way ahead of where your own website shows up, because our website has a lot of traffic. So I'm not saying that to promote our website or our membership necessarily. What I'm saying is there's probably opportunities that you've left slide that are opportunities for you to show up. So how are you going to show up? And it's also about showing up prepared, knowing how to introduce yourself, which brings me to speaking up. The more comfortable we can get with talking about our business without feeling like we're bragging or we're taking up all the space, or even the opposite, we're just fumbling our words and it's all coming out messy, you really want to get this dialed in. Now, the good news for the guys watching is that this is often easier for men, it seems, than for women. There's been a lot of research around how women aren't as good at speaking up about themselves and talking about their businesses. Now, we found this was happening inside of our network, and we found that women would join, they really wanted to connect, but they just didn't know how to talk about their business without stumbling or someone's eyes glazing over, or, you know, and you've been that person, hi, what do you do? And they've been talking for 5 minutes and you're like, no idea. And you don't want to be that person either, right? So I'm going to give you a formula that you can use that's going to allow you to, just in a sentence or two, be able to talk about your business and make connections immediately. But here's the thing with speaking up, and it's the same with showing up. It looks like this. So does speaking up. Magazine covers, TV interviews, on a summit, right? It looks like, wow, look at me out there. But this is how it feels. This is how it feels. And James, I don't know if you can relate or if it's a woman thing. But you don't always feel like being out there, right?
It's definitely, there was a couple of things that you were saying. One, you were confessing to be an introvert a moment ago. It seems so strange. I'm an extroverted introvert. I moved my business to a regional part of Australia so that people wouldn't bother me, because people were coming up to me in the street. And sometimes we feel like this little doggy here and we want to stay in the blanket. But right. You know what? We're talking about showing up. We're talking about speaking up. And showing up just sometimes means just raising your hand and saying, yes, I want to be involved. Whereas sometimes we feel like this little doggy and all we want to do is go like that.
Now, one of my favorite artists is Madonna. And so Madonna, there's a quote from her where she says, people don't get what they want because they don't ask for what they want. Right. And we also know her song, Express Yourself. It's all about speaking up. And maybe we're not as bold as Madonna, but this move, the show up, speak up moves are so important. So I'm going to make it a whole lot easier, especially if you feel like that doggy under the blanket. We created something that we call the connection statement. And this is a way to not come across pushy or sleazy, but to really be able to demonstrate the value of what you do. So you're going to have to listen up, because I'm going to walk you through this real quick, but then I'm going to give you a resource. James is going to make a resource available to you. that you can do this exercise on your own. So there's 4 elements to a great connection statement. And if you've never heard the term connection statement before, that's because we made it up. Because like I said, we were seeing members who had great things to offer, amazing products and services, but didn't quite have dialed in how to talk about themselves. So there's 4 elements to a connection statement. And the first is who. Who is your ideal client? And we always start there. We cannot build an amazing business if we don't know who we're serving. And let me give you a clue. Not everyone is your ideal client. Just because someone can put a bit of fog in a mirror, so they're a living being, it does not make them your client. So when we say women are my clients, or men, or children, or teachers, we want to get as specific as we can. And so we spend a lot of time, I drum on about this again and again inside of our network to get women to get really specific about who they serve. And again, I'm going to give you some examples. The next thing is to know what is the pain or problem that you solve. So whether you sell an app or whether you do training or whether you install solar systems or whether you build people's houses or whether you help people with their outfits, there's a pain or problem that that client has that you are helping them solve. And you want to get really clear on what that is. And often that'll take 1, knowing your ideal client, 2, talking to your ideal client and really finding out, digging into what those pain points are. We don't want to be guessing these. We want these to be from their language. Actually, Ryan Levesque, who's one of the speakers in this summit, he has, I'm going to probably misquote him, but he says something like your marketing should come from your market, not from your mind. And so what he means is you want to be talking to those ideal clients. You want to be uncovering the language that they use, because when you can describe a pain or problem in the same way that your client does, they get that you can help them. And you only can do that if you really connect with your ideal clients.
I heard an interesting distinction between push and pull marketing. Push marketing is like, this is me, this is my business, this is what it's about. And there are all sorts of tactical ways to push market. You can run ads, you can do this, you can do that. Pull marketing is, hey, do you have this particular problem? And if people are pull marketing, pull is like, do you have this particular problem? And if they do, they're immediately going to assume that what you offer is going to be able to help them get that end result. If you're talking about it, you were talking about showing up and you had the biography of the page. If you're talking about the people's problems on your blog, for example, that's what people are looking for. Right. They're not looking for the information that's on your About Us page. They're looking for the information about how you can solve their problems. That's another way of showing up.
That's great. Yeah. So showing up isn't just, look how fabulous I am. Look, and we want to show our authority. Here are the awards I've won. Here's the magazines I've been in. But it's also about letting them know, as James just said, that you have the solution to the pain or problem they have because you're talking about those things. And a great way to find what those things are is by getting it from the mouths of the people who are your ideal clients. So we've got our who, we know who we're for, and therefore who we're not for. And the famous Seth Godin always said, you want to be able to say, I made this for you, but not for you. He said, you want to be able to polarize that much, and don't be afraid to do it, because what happens is those who you're for, they will come in droves, but you'll be very clear about who your ideal client is. Alrighty. Who and what is the pain or problem? The third thing is, what is it that you sell? What specifically do you sell? And the better that you can be at articulating this, the easier it's going to be. Now, again, being a great marketer, James will totally resonate with this. I could say, I do resume consulting services, or I could say, I have a 3-hour write your winning resume class. Which one is more powerful? And so learning how to articulate your offers in a way that makes them compelling is part of introducing yourself as well. But tell us what it is that you sell. And finally, how do you deliver those results? I'm online, I'm offline, I have a membership, I have an e-commerce store, I have a brick and mortar store, I have trades that come to your home and they install the solar or whatever it is. Those 4 elements, when you put them together, create your connection statement. And as I said, we're going to give you a resource so that you can do this exercise. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Now, this is a service-based business. This is the lovely Louise Lucas from the Property Education Company. And she says, and I've got it here on my screen, so I'm just going to read it out. She says, I help first-time property buyers. So she's not saying I help anyone who wants a home loan. She says, I will help first-time property buyers and investors. And what she helps them do is purchase property confidently. And that's the pain or problem. When you're laying out a whole lot of money, it's your first home, it's your first investment. She helps you do it confidently, right? Because you're putting money on the line. And what she sells is loans. And how she delivers that is through online training and education is how she identifies if you're the right person for her. So that's an example. And notice it's one sentence, but we know who she's for. We know who she's not for. We know what the pain or problem is. We know what she sells. We know how she doesn't. This is another example. This woman sells hats. So her name is Felicity. She lives in Broome in WA. Now listen to her connection statement and notice how she distinguishes her ideal client. So she says, I'm a milliner. She said, and I create bespoke headwear for rural, regional, and remote women. So that is her who, not anyone with a head. She's saying rural, regional, remote women. So not for you, James.
Damn.
But what is it
hats.
about? So what is it about them though? The thing is they're in regional areas, so they don't have access to stores or opportunities to shop the same way that those of us who live in the city do. And so what she sells, we know, is hats. She's already told us that. And how does she do this? She has one-on-one consultations. She does those in person and online. She showcases her collections by exhibition through her online store and through being the milliner on the move. So she drives around parts of WA selling her hats. 2 sentences, but very clear, very specific. So imagine creating something like this for you. Now, one of our clients that I help do this is this woman here. Her name is Liz Van Vliet. And so she helps women who are executive assistants become indispensable to their employers. So again, totally different market. She had the opportunity to have a display stand, as you can see here. And she's like, oh my gosh, I've got this display stand. It's in a few days. I'm going to be meeting people. Could you help me get my connection statement together? And plus I need a banner and plus I need some flyers, etc. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on your connection statement first. Then you're going to put that connection statement on your banner. You're going to put it on your flyers and you're going to speak it when you're meeting those people. And they're like, hi, what do you do? And really they're looking, does she have any chocolate before I move on to the next stand? And so here's what happened. She says, I use my connection statement multiple times and now have a bunch of leads as a direct result. And this is what happens when you dial in your connection statement. You can say it very quickly. People get what you do. And here's the goal. The whole goal is not to sell something. The goal is to have someone say, tell me more about that. And so often when we introduce ourselves, when we're speaking up, we try and jam everything we do, all our experience, all our products and services, all the way we can help people into one conversation. And we don't only do that when we meet people, James, we do it on our websites. We do it in our email signature. We do it when we give someone a bio. We do it when we get that opportunity to speak. And so I want you to dial it back. And so what I've prepared for you is a connection statement template. It's got the 4 areas. You fill it out and then you create your statement. And so James is going to tell us how we can get access to that.
There will be a link somewhere.
There'll be a link somewhere. You know what? And just as a backup, I will put a link on my website and I will do it at herbusiness.com/B2B Summit. And then that'll link to wherever James has put it. So herbusiness.com/B2B Summit. Why don't we do that? And that way we'll
do both.
We'll do both.
Tick the
Awesome.
boxes. And we'll most likely send you guys and gals an email.
Okay. All right. There you go. So I'm just going to give you one more example now of how using a connection statement and how speaking up can introduce you to new clients. So this is Anna James. She has a business where she answers telephones and she qualifies leads. And so your sales staff don't have to take all the calls and you don't get the tire kickers, you just get the real clients. So for her, speaking up in our community meant she's now answering the phones for a number of our members. This is the one at the top. Her name is Fran Pratt. She's a sales trainer. She got more sales by helping the woman in the bottom here, Jackie Broman, who's a lawyer. She went in and trained her sales team. And the reason that she knew she could do that because Fran spoke up and said, I can help you with sales. Or someone had a sales question. She spoke up and she didn't say, write me a check or let me tap your card and I'll give you the information. No, she generously just said, well, here's some advice, but if you need any more help, come to me. Speaking up gets you a better website. So when Patricia Bowler, who's in Northern Territory, she's an esthetician, she needed a new website. She spoke up and said, hey, I need someone to do my website. Now, Karen Parrish, who's one of our members, had already been speaking up in our community, helping people with website questions. Should I go with Squarespace? Should I use WordPress? My website's been hacked. Can someone help me? So she'd already been showing up and speaking up inside of our community. So it was a really easy match for then Patricia to be recommended to do her site. Collaborations. When you speak up, you collaborate. So James says, hey, Susie, I'm doing this summit. What do you think? Would you like to be on it? I go, sure, I'd love to do that. And I'd love to support and let my community know about it. So these two women here collaborated. One of them specializes in fitness for aged women. The other one specializes in styling. So the two of them collaborate. They co-promote each other's products and services because they have a crossover in their audience. But it can only happen when you speak up and people get to know who you are. Speaking up gets you interviews. So this is Erica Webb, also Victoria. She teaches yoga and Pilates. She spoke up in our group and said, you know what, I've got this podcast. I'm looking for women who do this, this, and this. And she filled up her calendar of guests for the year. This is another one of our members. She was looking for support, totally different. She was looking, what do I call my webinar? This is who the ideal client is. This is what it's about. She had a number of not very good names for her webinars. She spoke up, she asked for support, and she came up with a much better name. This is the woman on the right. Some of you will know. His name is Amy Porterfield. She has the most popular marketing podcast on iTunes, or one of the most popular. To the left is a woman who's part of our network. Her name is Belinda Weaver, and she's a copywriter. She's got a business called Copyright Matters. So Belinda was in a group and someone said, hey, are there any people who have done this, that, and the other thing? And she went, yeah, I have. And they went, okay, great. Amy's looking for a guest. Who does that? Now, had she not spoken up, had she not shown up, that opportunity to be on this top rating podcast would never have come her way. And so Belinda's one of these people now, when I say, does anyone, she's like, yep. She's like, my hand's up, because I know it's going to lead to some open door. And as I said, collaboration's happening every single day when you speak up. Getting better packaging. This woman wanted some feedback, plastic or glass, label here or label there. So you want to be speaking up, but you want to be speaking up in the right environments, right? You don't want to be speaking up random groups where people don't know what they're doing. So you really want to find your tribe. You want to be speaking up in communities where there are like-minded people. There are people who are further down the path that you want to be walking on, or there are other people who are doing similar things. It's the reason that I belong to a mastermind for many of my years in business. It's the reason I've had accountability groups or goals groups, because I want to be around people that I can ask questions. And as business owners, we don't want to be asking random questions. We want trusted advice from people who know what they're doing, right? People like James, who've been in the industry, they know what they're doing backwards. You want to be around mentors and peers who can really support you and give you good advice, not opinions. Anyone can give an opinion, but not too many people can give you trusted advice.
There's a Jim Rohn saying, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Now, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Now, that doesn't mean we want to ditch all the people that we grew up with and our loved ones and our family and friends. But what we can do is we can balance it out a little bit better by introducing other people into our world that have a more experienced perspective about what it is that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And when I started my business, I didn't know a whole lot of people who own businesses. No, none of my friends did, and none of my family did. And so, yeah, family we can't do much about. They're our family. But we can definitely choose who our friends are and who our business buddies are. And that's why, you might have your friends that you've had since you were kids and you went to high school together or whatever that is, and people who love you and adore you and will always have your back. But you also want your business buddies. You want those people around you who are doing similar things, right? So that's where you want that industry association, or you want the networking group, or you want to be in the right Facebook group, or you want to belong to that mastermind. And these are investments in your business that will pay you back a zillion times if you find the right tribe and you find the right mentors and peers. Two more things that I want to give you. When you're showing up, you can get the right suppliers. So one of our women has an e-commerce store. She sells swimwear, but not just swimwear to anyone, right? So she's not there competing with Speedo. She sells swimwear to women whose bodies have changed over time, either because they've lost a breast to breast cancer, their bodies have changed because they've had babies, or maybe they're just getting older and they no longer feel comfortable in their bodies. So she helps them build their confidence through getting into swimwear that they look great in. So she was looking for a supplier. She was doing a calendar. You can see it there in the background. So she spoke up in the group, said, looking for someone to print this calendar. Here's what I'm doing. We're raising money, etc. Got matched to Vivian Kane from Minuteman Press in Paran, right? Who's one of our members. And they created this amazing calendar. But you have to show up in the right environments where great people are, and you want to be speaking up. It leads to better marketing. I talked to you earlier about the woman who needed help with her naming her webinar. This woman needed help with this image because it was like, whoa, okay. She said, can I get any thoughts on the banner? Yeah, thoughts were no. They were the thoughts. Thoughts were no, like those colors are clashing. It's not your brand. How about we just tone it back a little? How about we put you on it? How about we use some of the fonts, etc.? And so she came up with something better. And she came up with it faster than if she'd been doing it on her own, because she spoke up and she showed up in the right environments. So get your connection statement. This is going to allow you to really articulate how you are showing up, Because if you are fumbling your way in your conversations, in your email footer, because here's the thing with this statement, you put it on your website, you put it in your email footer, you give it to James when he's introducing you, on a summit, you use it at a publicity opportunity, you use it as a trade show. It is so versatile. In fact, there's at least 8 ways that we teach our members to use it so that you're making money, you're getting new clients, you're opening up opportunities, you're getting referrals from your connection statement. So once again, we'll give you the link to this so that you can download it. One of our members said, I'll read it out for you because the writing might be a bit small. She said, I feel despondent. She said, I've been in denial. Before joining her business, my messaging was inconsistent due to lack of clarity. Now I'm clear on the connection statement. It feels like I have to start all over again. And so she was despondent, but she was excited because now she had clarity. Now she knew who her ideal client was. Now she knew what she sold. She knew how to talk about her business in a different way. So
it's
even
so much easier to write those things the second times around when you've got the clarity, rather than trying to write something that everyone's going to like. If you go, this is my audience. Now I know what they like. I know what I'm writing about. That's what I'm going to write about. Easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And once you have that, you're not for everyone, you're for some people and not for others. It makes your messaging so much easier. And that's what James is saying. So there's one more move. It's called lift up. Now, this is one of my favorite moves because when you're lifting up, this is about lifting others up. This is about celebrating wins. This is about celebrating your own wins. This is about noticing when someone's made an effort and they've done that thing for the first time that terrified them. And as business owners, and I see this inside of the HerBusiness network, we have people for whom doing a marketing funnel is a no-brainer. And for someone else, it's like climbing a cliff. For one person, doing a Facebook Live is a no-brainer. For someone else, they'd rather stick a knife in their leg. For someone else, hiring their first staff member is terrifying. For others, it's like, give me all the people to hire. I love that, right? And so lifting up is about celebrating people as they make small steps and noticing and acknowledging. And we have really built a culture of lifting up inside of the community. And here's the thing, when you lift up, it actually leads to transactions. And this is Frances Pratt. She has a business called Kiss to Sell. You saw her face a little earlier. So she had said to me that in 9 months, she did $13,000 doing business with other members. But here's what she said. She said, the transactions come from the connections. So she started out by showing up, by speaking up and offering free advice, by speaking up and running a masterclass for us. And that turned into transactions. I checked in with her last week. This number is now $30,000 over a couple of years by showing up and speaking up and lifting up inside of one community, just our network. So she has other sources of business, but this is what happens when you commit to showing up and speaking up and doing this, lifting up. Find a culture that lifts you up, because how your network responds to you is either going to lift you up or it's going to bring you down. And so we are very much about collaboration versus competition. We are very much about making connections. And this doesn't all happen instantly, right? We need to be real about this. But the more that you are clear about why you do what you do, where you're going to show up, what your intentions are, and you will get that confidence. When you start making connections, this morning I ran an event for some of our new members, and I broke them up into groups and I gave them a process, and they were working on their connection statements and they were connecting. And they came out and they're floating above the ground because 1, they feel heard. 2, they've been contributed to. 3, they now know how to talk about their business in a way that they haven't done before. And they're off to the races. And so finding a culture that works for you, maybe it's the HerBusiness network, maybe it's James's community, maybe it's somewhere else, but really finding one where lifting up is kind of expected and wanted. So this is one lift up post, and our members actually use lift up as a hashtag. And so one woman does doggy treats. She's got a business called the Doggy Bakery, and she's lifting up a woman who does dog harnesses. So they collaborated, but then one gave biggies to her, and then they did a trade, but they also paid each other for their services. So she got into the group to lift her up. This woman here, she organizes people's closets and homes. She has a decluttering business in Canberra, and she had her best month ever. She'd just come off a meeting with her bookkeeper, and she came into our group and said, I just had my best month ever. I am so excited. She said, but I have nobody to tell. So I'm coming here to tell my group, because you understand what lift up is about. And that is so important, to have people where you can celebrate your wins. Who do you go to, James? I don't want to put you on the spot. Who do you celebrate your wins with?
Yeah, so I've got 2 business partners. I'm very lucky. I didn't always have a business partner. I often, I was the lonely entrepreneur that would do it on my own, carry it on my own,
Yes.
all that stuff as well too. So I've got 2 business partners, but in addition to my 2 business partners, yes, I've got my own network as well. So it is wonderful when you share a win. So I'm sure that you do this in your world as well too. When the community comes online, you probably spend maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes just celebrating the wins. Who's done this? Who's achieved that? What are your epiphanies this week?
Yeah.
And for all the reasons that Suzi says, we don't otherwise have people to talk to about these things. And I remember the first time, Suzi, I did a webinar and I told my mum that we had a 50% show up rate for a webinar. And my mum went, "Oh, gee, I'm so sorry." A 50% shot rates on a webinar is amazing.
Yeah.
And then it's just,
that's about being in the right environment, right? You're showing up and you're speaking up in the right environment, and your mum's going to be happy for you, really no matter what, but you want to be showing up, like you said, and knowing that you're going to be celebrating. And it's not about rah-rah. It's really about, so one thing we do at the end of every month is we have a monthly roundup. And one of the things we do is that we look at because at the beginning of the month, our members all set their goals for the month. And at the end of the month, we kind of look back and see how we did. And some months are better than others. But whether you have had an amazing success or you need a shoulder to cry on, having a community that you can do that with, where you can reflect. Because sometimes we do so much as entrepreneurs, but we don't take stock of it. And it's only when we've been swimming out towards the horizon and we look back and we go, wow, look how far I've come. And so being, again, in a community, I'm getting goosebumps. This is interesting.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor, by the way. I'm an analogy or a simile. I don't know.
Yeah. But that's what we do. We keep going towards
the
the horizon. And then if we look back, we see how far we've come. And so that's what, being in the right environment where someone will say, hey, you know what? You've been wanting to do that for ages. You've been wanting to start that membership. You've been wanting to change that website. You've been wanting to start running. You've been wanting to, whatever it is. And someone to say, hey, you say, you know what? I did that. Or someone to say, I noticed you did that and I noticed you were scared, but you did it anyway. So
I gave the Jim Rohn, I think his name is Jim. Yeah. I got a quite almost. Yeah. You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I also saw a study at one point, which was about different factors leading to success. And one of those factors was people who are generally successful surround themselves with optimists.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because most people by their very nature are not optimists. They might think that they're optimistic or they're not. But most people are usually err on the side of cautions most of the time because we're genetically wired that way, because if we're too adventurous, we get eaten by saber-toothed tigers or something.
Yeah, that's right.
But the optimists surround themselves with other optimists.
Yeah. Well, I believe that. I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, I don't have rosy days every day, but generally I want to be around people who are uptone, who are positive, who are looking to the future, not people who are, and one of the things I was saying to some of our new members is we don't have pity parties here. We pick up, we empathize, but then we move on. So just to bring it all together, this again is our connection scale. What we want to do is we move out of isolation into being more connected. We want to move away from transaction and just thinking, well, if I go to the biggest networking events, that's going to be better than having a dinner party. I've made better connections at a dinner party and had better result than going to a 600-person breakfast where I talk to the person next to me that way, and we have nothing in common, right? So it's not about the numbers. That's what you want to understand with transaction. What we want to do is we want to be connected. And the way we do that is through showing up, speaking up, and lifting up.
That's beautiful. Now, there is just so much good value in that. And it's not just about what Suzi said, it's also about how she said it. Now, I'm probably at some point, I'm actually probably going to do my own little autopsy of that presentation because it was an amazing presentation. Okay. Content aside, I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
But to recap, number 1, we talked about showing up. And I'm just going to make it really simple for the guys and gals out there. Showing up can often mean, I use the expression putting your hand up. And it was interesting that you said that sometimes women are not as forthcoming about men when they're doing that. Now, one of my big first ventures was Anthill Magazine, and we had awards. We had the 30 under 30, we had the Smart 100, we had the Cool Company Awards, and we used to actively, aggressively pursue women to enter.
Right. Yes.
Because
and what happened?
Because they just were not putting their hand up. And I think it's really important, and it doesn't matter what gender you are. I think it's important every day to almost find a way to put your hand up. I know that a lot of people are into getting into Clubhouse at this moment.
Yes.
And lots of people sit there like this at the back of Clubhouse. Just as an idea, next time you enter a Clubhouse room, put your hand up straight away. There's even a little picture of a hand up. So put your hands up. The second thing that we heard was speak up. And my big take home from that was largely about the clarity that your members have around their target audience. I'm going to take speak up one step further and say, when you speak up, you're standing for something. You speak up, you stand up, you're standing for something. And I love the Seth Godin quote. Can you share it with us again? It's, you're not for this person, you're that person.
Yeah, he says, I made this for you, but not for you. You want to be able to say that. And that's actually from this book here.
This is marketing. What a great title.
Yeah, that's from that book there.
But I've had people come into our world, and I love the clarity that you had in the target audience. But I remember I had a young fella called Josh came into our world, and he said his target audience was singles or couples aged between 25 and 65 that think that they're spending too much. And I went, okay, couples or singles 25 to 65 that think that they're probably not spending their money effectively. And I said, you've just said everyone in the work population, excluding swingers. that's what you've got. That's what you've got. And interestingly, you had lots of examples of people working with each other. When he got clarity around his target audience, the first thing that he could do is he could say, okay, I can target these people. I can form relationships with these people because we have the same audiences. Yeah. It became very, very clear.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier. It also really helps you with your marketing, right? You're not trying to be all things to all people. You know what images to use, you know what words to use, you know where to advertise or where to, it's a game changer. And it seems really obvious when you talk it through, but so many small business owners especially are just not doing that.
No, and you did the glass with the
fog.
With the fog, yeah.
One of my mentors said that to me. Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I know you will know, and maybe some of your viewers will know. And he used to say, that he's like, why? Because they can fog a mirror, in his very inimitable way.
They've got a checkbook and a pulse.
Yeah, right.
But now they don't even have checkbooks. So there you go, a checkbook and a pulse. It is so funny. And there's a fear associated with that, which is if I say I'm only working with this audience, I'm going to lose opportunities over here. And it's just ridiculous. People have come into our world and we've sent them down that path immediately. They've doubled their clients. Wow. You've talked about wait lists. They often double, triple, quadruple their rates, because they can identify a target audience that spends so much more. Yeah. And to bring it back to one of your examples, the milliner who makes the hats, she might actually find that someone in the country is 3 times more, probably will pay 3 times as much money as someone in the city, because it's a difficult thing to get a hat in the country. And it's probably also tied to her passion. So show up, speak up, and the third one, lift up. And I think, me personally, I was wondering where you're going to go with that. And I think that is the most important of all, because we're only human, and we launch ourselves into these worlds as business owners, as entrepreneurs. We've got ambitions. We're looking to the horizon, as Suzi said. But there are some days where it's hard. There are a lot of days where it's hard. And if you are only surrounded by people where you show them your logo, you're showing the design of the bottles before or the thing. Yeah. You show a family member a logo and they say, yeah, I've never been a fan of green. and then they wander away and you go, okay, what can I do with that. Whereas a brand expert in an online community will say, well, different colors generate different emotions and different audiences and different ages. And let's play with that. But the most important thing is making sure that we are elevated, and to show up and to speak up. You know, we need to lift ourselves up, and we can't do that on our own all the time. So that was my favorite bit.
Thank you. Well, we called this presentation connections, the connections with confidence, and that confidence comes from using those three aspects, right? And from knowing how to position yourself. You will do it far more confidently when you know you're in an environment where you're supported, where collaboration is the way to go, where people are there to lift you up and not bring you down. That makes making connections, whether you make them today or tomorrow and 2 weeks from now, it makes it that much easier when you feel like, you know, you're part of a community where people are on your side. So I'm gonna wind things up. But one thing I will say is that Suzi's been very, very generous, and she's giving us the template. When you get that template, I also do recommend have a look a little bit deeper into Suzi's world, particularly if you don't have clarity around your target audience, because I think that that's just something that's very, very, very important. But just for fun, I'm going to put Suzi on the spot, and I'm going to say, if you were to go back to your young, we're both young still, I shouldn't say that, your younger 20-something self, and you're in Hawaii and you meet yourself at that particular networking event, what advice would you give yourself? We didn't plan this. We didn't rehearse this. No, we didn't.
To put Suzi on this one. But the moment you brought that up, my brain went back and I thought, what a wild concept.
It was, it's very interesting because if I were to do anything quicker. So quick story. Within 6 months of starting my business, I had lost $50,000 on my very first deal. We had an events company. We would represent mostly American speakers and authors here in Australia. We lost $50,000. This was in 1994, where $50,000 was more than it is now. Yeah. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And it took us almost 2 years to pay back all the debts, all the advertising companies and whatever that we had. And so it was a real slap in the face. And part of that was that we started by being lone rangers. We thought because we had had jobs where we had done similar things, we'd done marketing, I had a marketing background, PJ had a sales background, we'd both worked in events. We thought that we could book the Sydney Convention Centre and fill it up, bring out this American author, and we were playing in a different field. And what we hadn't done at that point was surrounded ourselves with mentors and peers and good support and advice and a team. And so if I could go back now, I would say one of the first things I would do is I would have gotten a mentor earlier, and I would have joined the right communities earlier. And the other thing I would have done is I would have hired faster. That's the other thing. Like, we went for way too long doing it on our own, being that lone ranger, fingering all the pies, doing all the things, where if I was to do it again, I would just hire earlier and keep myself in the business owner, keep my business owner hat on and my queen bee crown on and go from there. But there's nothing that I would change. But, you know, it was just those first couple of years where we were going backwards more than we were going forwards. And I see this every day, you know, people who've been in business and they still feel like they're barely treading water or they're going backwards. And I think that that's those key things. Get connected with the right people, the right ideas, the right peers, the right mentors. You know, James has so generously put together this summit. So you want to stay connected, right? You don't have to do it on your own. But you also don't want to be Googling randomly, right, to find resources when there's good communities that can support you.
So if I was to bring that back to what we learned today, we all know this. There are multiple aspects to running a business. It's not like one thing. It's like a game of 3D chess. In that particular scenario, Suzi showed up. She really did. She spoke up. She put herself out there, but perhaps she didn't surround herself with the right mentors that could guide her and lift her up, and it fell over for her, which is why we need to show up, speak up, and surround ourselves with people who can lift us up. Thank you so much, Suzi.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.